hippie, but we're cutting trees type family. Joined the Marine Corps at 18 after doing construction work for a while. Did 4.5 years in the Marine Corps, deployed to Iraq, came back, did stonemasonry again, did commercial fishing. So I'm kind of one of those people that have just, similar to the governor, you build stuff, you solve problems. Typically it's with your hands. I've just kind of shifted to now trying to solve problems with words versus hammers and guns. So when I got done commercial fishing, I went to college on the post 9/11 GI Bill, and that's where I started to become a bit more politically active, trying to reconcile some of the things that I did overseas and what is American foreign policy, what does it mean, how do we fit in with the rest of the world, and then you start bringing it down from the macro to the micro. How does my state fit in to this great nation, and then how does my little area fit into the state, which fits, so it's all interconnected, and it became a really fascinating thing to try to understand politics. And as I was doing all of that and coming up with my own opinions and starting to understand policy, I realized that a party wasn't necessary for me to be able to read a policy, read information, and formulate an opinion. At no point was it necessary for me to be part of a group to be able to do that. So in 2014, I came home late again. I'd been helping someone out, and my wife had the candidates guide for representative pulled up on the computer, and she said, if you're going to be coming home late because you're always trying to help people, maybe you could at least get a job doing it. So ran in 2014 against a strong Democratic incumbent. I represent a relatively liberal area. I'm a little bit of a right-leaning independent, but I do associate that with the old school Republican Party that kind of raised me, which is a bit of a far cry from what I see today. But so ran against that nice lady. She beat me, but I did get about 33% of the vote and was highly encouraged to run again. I knew she would be termed out in 2016, so ran in 2016 and won. The Republican did remove his name from the ballot, so it was just the Democrat and myself, and I squeaked it out with 12 votes. But a win's a win, so campaign's over. Let's get to work now. Like I'm done with all that. So the one story that I want to highlight that I think really showcases to me some of the effectiveness that independents bring to the table is when the feds passed the new law that allowed for internet service providers to sell kind of bulk metadata anyway. We reacted on the state end, and so we put in a bill that would require that the ISPs at least get permission from the consumer, the express permission. So it was an opt-out, not an opt-in. But because we were reacting to the federal government, the bill was put in after deadline. And if it's an after deadline bill, you have to get approval through Legislative Council. And in the state of Maine, Legislative Council is made up equally of Democrats and Republicans. And I got brought in as a person who was interested in this topic and was working with a small group of people. And we're in the speaker's office and we're talking about it. And I finally look around and I go, does anyone mind if I highlight the elephant that's like not in the room? You don't have a single Republican here. Like I'm your token conservative. Like what's going on here? And they spent a lot of time trying to figure out how they were going to work around Legislative Council because they figured there was going to be no Republican support. There's a bunch of Democrats trying to figure out how do we get this into a committee? How do we push this along versus trying to see if we can't collaborate with the other party. And so I said, I got to get back to committee. Does anyone mind if I go and talk with the Republicans? And they said, no, actually, we think that would be a good idea for you to go and do that. And so in the course of 2 days, they thought they were going to have to work around Legislative Council. They weren't going to get any support. The Senate president had already said no. And I said, well, let me just go and talk with folks. So over the course of the next 3 days, I liaisoned with all the Republican leadership. And when that bill got to Legislative Council, there was only one vote against it, and that was the Senate president. Other than that, all the Democrats voted for it to be an after-deadline bill, and every Republican except for the Senate president voted for it as well. So it really showcased to me that this isn't lack of common ground here. This is internet privacy. This is consumer protections. These are things that kind of transcend party lines. Yet inherent in your own discussions was the fact that you weren't going to be able to work with these people. And yet it just took this guy a little bit of walking around and talking with people that I work with every day, that everyone works with every day, and just trying to throw out a commonsensical idea to them. Could you support this? Yeah, sure. I don't see any problem with it. It seems to make a lot of sense. And it was you would see the eyes of the Democrats light up when I would go and say, hey, so I got the Republican minority leader and the assistant minority leader. They said they're fine with it. How did you do that? So it was crazy. I went up and I talked with them about it, and they said, sounds good. So, and I really like that story. I think that, the gap between the two parties is a little more self-induced than we would like.